This episode is brought to you by Progressive. Most of you aren't just listening right now. You're driving, cleaning, and even exercising. But what if you could be saving money by switching to Progressive? Drivers who save by switching save nearly $750 on average. And auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Multitask right now. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $744 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations.
Real skin results start with one daily ritual. Meet Daily Microfoliant from Dermalogica. This iconic exfoliating powder activates with water to gently polish away dullness and uneven texture. It leaves skin instantly smoother and more luminous while supporting your skin barrier. Formulated with professional expertise to deliver visible results daily, even on sensitive skin. Discover your healthiest skin today. Visit Dermalogica.com and use code SMOOTH at checkout for an exclusive gift with your $65 purchase.
Welcome to the Kendo and IAIDO Italia podcast in this English language version. Enjoy listening.
Thank you again for being with the Kendo and IAIDO Italia podcast. So today we're undertaking a really crucial deep dive. We're going to be targeting what I think is one of the most persistent problems in any Budo practice.
Wow.
How to maintain genuine progress when most of your training is, well, solo.
It really is the defining challenge of modern practice, isn't it?
Completely.
Particularly if you're focused on forms like, IAIDO or even JoJo techniques, places where a sensei or a partner is often just not there.
And for this, we've pulled from an exceptional source. We're looking at advice from Seki Sensei, who is the 22nd headmaster of the K-style.
And he brings an immense, 50 years of Budo experience to this exact topic.
And he's not just speaking from past experience. He's currently leading online instruction for over 120 students, so he's forced to be intimately familiar with this whole isolation problem.
Right. So our mission here is to really distill his wisdom into the most critical, actionable steps for you when you step out there alone.
Exactly. Whether that's the dojo floor or, let's be honest, your living room floor.
Exactly. But, and this is a big but, before we get to the 4 mechanical points, Seki Sensei starts with a fundamental warning.
Okay.
And we really need to deliver this first because it colors absolutely everything else.
What is it?
His core message is that practicing alone can actually be counterproductive if you haven't reached a certain foundational level.
Counterproductive. Wow, that's a strong word. We often assume any practice is better than no practice.
That's the common assumption, yeah. But the danger he's pointing to isn't just stagnation, it's entrenchment.
Entrenchment, meaning what?
Meaning, without the immediate objective correction from a sensei, you are simply memorizing a mistake.
You're training a bad habit right into your muscle memory.
You're training it right in. You're deepening the wrong groove,
right,
physically and mentally, which can take months, sometimes years of struggle to unlearn.
Okay, so if solo practice is this, high-risk activity for a beginner, we have to define what that foundational level even looks like.
Well, the sources suggest it's not really about complexity, it's about consistency. It means you've got a stable, reproducible kamae, your posture. You've mastered basic footwork, ashi-sabaki, without having to think about it.
And the basic cuts, I assume.
Basic cuts, draws like nukitsuke and chibori. You can do them smoothly without losing your center. Until a sensei sees that and gives you the green light, solo practice should probably be limited to just warm-ups.
So that brings us to the core idea then. The non-negotiable prerequisite is that sensei-student relationship. Specifically, the sensei's observation.
Precisely. Until that basic level is secure, your number one priority has to be getting your techniques observed and corrected.
Which means being proactive, sending videos, asking specific questions.
And critically, being completely open about your struggles. You absolutely cannot hesitate to show your shortcomings.
This emphasis on the teacher, it feels like more than just technical instruction. It's a cultural cornerstone of Budo.
It is. The sources even bring up an old Japanese saying.
Which is?
That the entire success of your journey, how meaningful Budo becomes and how much you can grow, depend entirely on the sensei you choose.
Entirely. That's a lot of weight on one decision.
It forces you to make a really conscious, thoughtful choice. And Seki Sensei, reflecting on his own 5 decades, he adds something that might even challenge traditional ideas.
Go on.
He stresses the importance of whether he genuinely liked the sensei as a person.
Wait a minute, isn't that dangerously subjective. If the goal is mastery, shouldn't we prioritize technical skill over, personal affinity?
That's a fair challenge. But the argument here is that in Budo, the transmission is inseparable from the human connection.
How so?
Seki Sensei saw people whose training literally drove them to personal deterioration. Why? Because they forced themselves to train under a sensei they disliked.
Just to get a rank or a certification.
Exactly. It's a conflict between the ego-driven pursuit of rank and the genuine pursuit of the art.
And if that core relationship is toxic,
The student often ends up internalizing that negativity. The sources say it sometimes leads them to dislike martial arts altogether. You're passing on a way of life, not just movements. If you don't respect the person conveying it, the whole foundation just crumbles.
that is a really powerful prerequisite. So first, choose a sensei you can learn from and respect. And second, prioritize their observation above all else.
That's the bedrock.
Yeah.
And once that foundation is confirmed, well, then you've earned the right to train solo. And that's where these 4 specific points become your indispensable tools.
Okay, let's transition then from the philosophical prep to the mechanical execution. These are the 4 guides for effective solo practice. What's point 1?
Point 1 addresses something that just vanishes when you train alone, the target. Or more specifically, the gaze.
The gaze. Okay, so when the partner is gone, what happens? Your eyes just wander.
They do. You might look down or kind of look past where they would be. Without the defined presence of a threat, the angle of your attack just drifts. The whole technique becomes soft.
Meaning it would never land accurately in a real partner kata.
It would never land. The body follows the gaze, so if the gaze is wrong, the entire structure is misaligned.
So how do we keep that invisible partner anchored in space?
Seki Sensei gives this fantastic mental cue. Assume the imaginary opponent is exactly the same height as you are.
Oh, that's smart.
It is. So if you're cutting for the head, your cut stops precisely at the height of your own head. If you're thrusting toward the vital center, the saitai,
Solar plexus area.
right, you aim at the height of your own saitai. That specificity forces the correct angles for your shoulders, your elbows, everything. It gives you an objective reference point.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Point 2. Where do we go from the gaze?
To the engine room of the body, maintaining a low posture or the lowered waist.
Ah, this is a classic. And it's probably the first thing to go in solo training.
Absolutely. Your techniques are only effective, only stable, when they come from a conscious lowered waist position, driving power from the hips and legs.
It's interesting because a partner naturally enforces this, don't they?
They do, because survival dictates it. If your waist rises in a partner exercise, you're immediately unstable, you're predictable, your distance is shot.
You open yourself up.
You open yourself up to being struck. In solo practice, that danger's gone, so the waist just floats upward because, well, it's easier.
So what are the immediate mechanical consequences when that happens, when the waist rises?
You see 3 main failures. First, it kills the smoothness of your footwork. The legs and upper body get disconnected.
Okay.
Second, your attack speed actually goes down. Yeah. Because you lose the power from your hip rotation. And third, and this is crucial, you lose kaim. That focused, decisive stability at the end. You just become unstable.
It's the difference between powering a cut with your whole body versus just swinging your arms.
Exactly. Budo technique isn't showmanship. It's physics. If the engine is high, the car is unstable.
Right. Let's move to point 3. Do not rush. This has to be the hardest one for motivated learners to accept. Speed feels like skill.
It's such a common pitfall. But Seki Sensei is adamant here. It is utterly meaningless to rush, to try and imitate speed without correctly performing all the intermediate movement.
You're just cutting corners to feel fast.
And you're committing a double error.
Yeah.
You're reinforcing a bad habit, and you're robbing yourself of the chance to develop true functional speed.
So what's the proper progression? How do you build accuracy before you build pace?
The first priority always is practicing techniques carefully, intentionally. For accuracy, make sure every single movement matches what your sensei taught you.
And then speed comes naturally.
You will develop organically, yes. Speed should be the result of perfect form, not the goal of the practice.
And once you get that baseline, there's an advanced tip for self-correction, right?
Yes, and this is a great test for yourself. Check if your technique changes when you do it quickly versus slowly.
So if the form degrades.
If you see your posture change, your gaze shift, any loss of stability when you speed up, you have to immediately go back to the slow, deliberate pace. Compare your movements to videos of your sensei. Break it down. Arms, legs, gaze. Find where it's breaking.
That keeps the practice analytical, not just emotional.
It turns solo practice from just repetition into structured self-assessment.
Which brings us directly to the final and maybe the most counterintuitive point, especially for our culture. Point 4, discard the notion that doing more is better.
This is a firm quality over quantity mandate. The idea of practicing a kata hundreds or thousands of times. That only becomes valuable much, much later in the journey.
Years down the line.
Many years, when the fundamentals are totally unshakable. For those in their first year or two, that kind of volume in solo repetition is just not effective.
Why the prohibition, though? What's the psychological damage?
It's because we know that one correct repetition, one that's been validated by a sensei, is infinitely more valuable than 100 repetitions of an error.
You're just digging a hole.
Every single time you practice incorrectly, you are strengthening the neural pathway for that mistake. So for the beginner, the priority have to be on watching the sensei and having the sensei watch you. Cherish that observed time more than sheer volume.
Okay, so if we bring all this together, connecting the 4 practical tips back to that initial big warning, what's the single takeaway for someone training solo right now?
The takeaway is that it all emphasizes conscious, deliberate practice guided by expert feedback. The correct gaze, the low waist, accuracy before speed, quality over quantity. These are all mental tools to simulate the pressure and correction a partner provides.
But they're useless without the feedback loop.
They're completely ineffective and maybe even dangerous without that periodic external reality check from your mentor. You have to confirm your self-correction is actually working.
And that reality check, it demands openness, which brings us right back to the human connection. Seki Sensei had a final piece of advice on that, didn't he?
He did, and it's a reassuring one. He said students need to completely discard the idea that it's embarrassing for their sensei to see their shortcomings.
Or that they might be disappointed.
Or disappointed by a lack of skill. He said, on the contrary, showing both your strengths and your weaknesses openly, without reservation, is what deepens the bond between teacher and student.
It shows trust. It proves you're committed to the long, hard path, not just trying to look competent.
And it accelerates growth, because now the sensei knows exactly where to help. The relationship becomes based on honest assessment, not performance theater.
Which just proves the point again. Budo transmission is fundamentally about mentorship and connection.
Which leaves a really important question for you to consider long after this deep dive ends. And it applies to any complex skill you're learning.
What's that?
How much of your growth is dictated not just by your dedication to the technique, but by the intellectual and emotional honesty you share with your chosen mentor? Is your dedication to the art matched by your openness to correction?
If you enjoyed this episode and are happy to see our work continue, please help us with a simple like or by following us on social media. Thanks again, and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this podcast.
Kendo IAIDO Italia, il podcast.